Welcome to heCast, the official podcast of He Changed It. As always, I am Mike Chisholm. As always, I am so excited to have conversations with people regarding the space of men's mental wellness and how we can sharpen each other. That's really what we had today. James McGuinness, a Brit in the USA, is I believe his Instagram title. Well, you can look for his socials in the description. But yeah, James is just this really cool guy that's gone through a lot in his life. He's gone through some adventures growing up in the UK, going through adversity in his family, and then coming over to the US. He's written 3 books. He's a writer. Stars Will Guide You Home is the one that we talk about more. But keep calm and carry on the learning is another one that he wrote. And I'm really grateful for this conversation that he and I had. I do feel sharpened today. I think he feels the same way. And that's really what it's all about. Us sharing our stories, sharing our experiences, sharing the things that we learned. And then maybe when people, receive that sharing, they can then reflect on things that they're going through and how they might be able to, tackle life a little bit easier or better or more successfully, and move towards whatever abundance looks like. And James is just that guy, and I just appreciate him as a dad, as a writer, as a man. Really cool guy. We had a phenomenal conversation. I hope you enjoy it. If you haven't downloaded the app yet, what the heck are you waiting for? You can go to hechangedit.com and check out all the things that are going on. We ask that you download it, share it, all of this stuff. Let us all sharpen each other. Please enjoy my conversation with James McGuinness. James, I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. One of the things about heCast, and since we've started it, I've met many brothers from other mothers, and I certainly feel that way. It's funny, you and I know you live at the stateside now. I want to ask you about that actually, but clearly from the UK. Joel's from Australia. I'm from Canada. We're talking about how the Commonwealth is being represented today. James, before we get going, I just want to say I appreciate you. I appreciate your attitude towards life and the way that you deal with adversity. I appreciate that. We're going to get into that. Welcome, James, to heCast.
Yeah, thank you, mate. And honestly, the sentiments are the same to you. Like, what you are doing for men's mental health is really phenomenal. I'm honored to be here today and talk a little bit. But if one person listens to your podcast every week, then you're doing something wonderful in the world. And so there's not enough people like you here doing good things.
Oh, I appreciate that very, very much. I think about the evolution of species and humanity in particular, and how stories are so important and have always been so important. No matter the culture, looking back, no matter the time frame, stories are very, very important. And when I read some of the things in your story, we learn from these things, and the idea that every guy's got a story, every guy's got a place, and many times these stories, when we hear them, we then reflect on our own life and how they might apply to us. I feel like you have so many stories. I feel like I could do a podcast series with you, knowing all the things that you have done. Like it's
me after today, but all right. It's no, it's interesting. And I'll perhaps for the audience, I'll share some of my story and my background. But
sure,
something that resonates with me is that what's interesting when you talk about men's mental health is there's not one size fits all, right?
No,
there's multiple different things, and there's multiple different stigmas around it, multiple different, almost like a spectrum. And then on the other side of it is that there are multiple different triggers or things that are happening. Like, I listened to your show the other week when you had the Royal Canadian Mounted Police.
Chris,
what a great guy. And he went through a lot, and there's certainly a couple of things that triggered him onto his mental health. And what's interesting for me is now I'm an old, I'm an old man in my 40s, right? My story, there's been a lot of things that could have actually impacted other people, or could have impacted people on depression. And probably the most trivial one was the one that really got me down in life. Which is, and that's that. I think that if we can again bring awareness that like it's not just one thing, it could be anything, it could be, you know, every like no two wires are connected the same. It's not like an electrical unit, like when it comes to men's mental health. So it's great that we bring this up.
I couldn't agree more. Like if you're running at full tilt, it only takes one little blemish on the ground, one little stick, one
Right.
little twig to completely upend everything. But then there's the major stuff too. And I think you're right. I think many times we pay attention to the major stuff more because it's the big thing. Like going through a laundry list of some of the things that you have seen, you
Yeah.
know, back in Britain as a boy, you know, like some of these things that you've gone through. I didn't say this before we hit record here, but as I read some of the bio, I'm like, this dude is a modern day Job. I mean, my gosh, some of the
No,
things that you've
it's
seen,
certainly
like, so,
not. It's certainly
you
not.
know,
Uh,
no, it's not. But like, let's go through just a couple broad strokes
yeah.
in Britain. You know, 9 years old, the family going through financial turmoil to the point where at some point you see your dad homeless on the street. You discover
Yeah.
him
So,
homeless on the street.
so there is a gap there between like
Of
child and,
course.
but so
And then at 18, losing your best friend. Like,
yeah. Yeah.
right there, we're talking three monumental, huge,
Things.
impactful
Right.
events.
Right.
But
Right.
yet, like you just said, sometimes it might be the little quote unquote trivial thing, and nothing's trivial, but the way when you compare it to the broad strokes like that, sometimes it is a much more granular thing or nuanced thing that makes
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
impact on the mental health. So I just find it interesting that that you said that point right from the start. But yeah, like you grew up in adversity.
Yeah. I mean, so to give the audience a background, so like, you know,
Yeah.
my daughter is 9 years old now, right? And so like you don't remember I don't remember much of my childhood before 6 or 7, right? You know, I remember playing real football, like for any of
Yeah.
the Americans, like I remember certain things, but the the day that we lost our house and we went bankrupt as a family is a very significant day in my life. And you know, and I say this not because I want a sob story or a hug. I'm British, right? I don't really want hugs, but I'm saying this because like other people have probably gone through things. Well, I went to school. My mum walked me to school that morning, dropped me off at the school. What I didn't know was that essentially my dad, very interesting character, like loved him to bits, but had a lot of challenges himself.
Yeah.
For him, like, you know, like the old emails of like, hey, like there's a Nigerian prince and like, hey, if you give your bank details.
Uh-huh.
My dad did that in the 1980s, 1990s, before the
Oh.
world of emails. And he gambled essentially our whole house on something. And my mum was naive, didn't know about it. She was a mum, she wasn't paying a mortgage, and he gambled everything and then told her the night before, hey, we've got to go to court tomorrow because we're going to lose the house. So she didn't have any idea. She drops me off at school. She goes to the court. They tell her, no, you've had your chances. You're losing the house. She goes back, packs up the whole house in the matter of like 4 or 5 hours. I get picked up from school because from my family friend, and I get taken to McDonald's, and I'm like a 9-year-old. I'm like, whoa, like this is so cool. Like I get McDonald's tonight. And then they drive me to this place. And as opposed to my, you know, 4-bedroom house, I'm suddenly living in a 1-bedroom flat
Yep.
apartment in
Yep.
England. And then, you know, through very luck and because my mum was a nice person, we then got like a kind of 2-bedroom house rented, but we didn't have a, you know, this is 1991, so we didn't have a phone,
Yeah.
a landline for a year as a 9-year-old. Like we only had one old 14-inch TV, which you had to bang to get the 3 channels like that. Like, and it just in a flip of a coin changed my whole childhood.
Yeah.
Um, and then, you know, you talked about my dad, like my dad had this struggle. It was almost like a gambling addiction, but it was with businesses. Um,
Yep.
and so I came home from university, like in my probably 2021, and I knew that he was struggling on things. And my mum was in, like, at that point, like a government housing, and he was sitting there watching TV, and I'm like, okay, like, all right, time to go. Like, I'm going to bed. And then I just went out to put the trash out, and I see him sleeping next to the trash cans, and it's kind of like, what do you do? And that I suppose is just one element of things that I've had to deal with. And I think my approach to mental health has always been very much British upper lip, like, okay, well,
Yeah.
right now we just deal with it, right? Like,
Yep.
okay, like, the world's collapsing. Okay, we just deal with it, right? And I think
Yep.
it's only taken me until like recent, like probably in the last 5 or 6 years, to realize that, like, again, all of those things can have a knock-on effect on your life, can trigger you. How you cope with it there and then might not be how you cope with it later on. And it's okay for people to have experiences, and it's okay for people to go back on history 10 years later and take the help you need. And for me, and the other last thing I'll say, and then I promise I'll be quiet, like, I know this is
No,
meant,
no, no. This is great. I love this.
is um everyone handles mental health differently as well.
Yes.
Yeah. there's a there's a lot of charities out there that deal with men's mental health. And there's the TV commercials like, hey, like talk to a friend, talk to someone. I didn't want to talk to a friend. I didn't want anyone to know about. I was embarrassed about
It's
these
a
things.
shame thing at that point,
Yeah,
right?
right. And so for me, my coping mechanisms were very different to someone else that might have experienced homelessness or losing a house as a kid, or like whatever it might be. Like, and it took me a long while to realize that, one, I wasn't coping. I still
Hmm.
had demons. And two,
Yep.
my coping mechanism was, I would rather talk to a stranger than I would a friend. I was an embarrassment for me talking to my friends.
Okay,
So
I gotta break in here for just a second,
yeah,
if you
yeah,
don't mind,
please,
because
yeah,
I gotta. And it's stupid because it's a generic question. It's the question that So at the risk of being generic, but I gotta ask that, this question: if you could go back, and if there was an area that you could console that child, or that version of you growing up, would it be to say, you know what, you don't have to be ashamed, and to kind of release
yeah,
the yoke of
yeah,
shame from you at that point? Is that one of the things that you've learned along the way?
100%. I think we spoke before we started recording about my books,
Yeah.
and I'll bring this there's a reason for it.
Yeah.
I was a weird kid, right? Like, I was into sports. I was like into football, rugby, tennis. I was also into acting, but I was a weird teenager, right?
Yep.
I openly admit it. At the time, I didn't think so. I thought I was the coolest person ever, right?
Sure.
Um, but I would write as a teenager. I would write things, and I was completely embarrassed about it. I was like, writing is not cool. I would never do it. In the same way, I was embarrassed to talk about my family. Like, I
Mhm.
was embarrassed about my situation. I didn't want to go back to university after a weekend away and go, hey, like, yeah, I found, yeah, like, yeah, I watched the game, like, and oh, by the way, I saw my dad buy a trash can. I was
Yeah.
just, and I think if I would go back into time to answer your question, I think that you should never be embarrassed, right? You should embrace who you are, but you should also embrace what struggles or what challenges you're going through in your own way. Like, and I would
Yeah.
have gone back in time and said, dude, you should talk to us. You don't want to talk to people. Talk to a therapist. Like, talk to someone that you don't have a relationship with, but you need to talk. Um,
Yeah.
I would have definitely done that.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because shame is one of those things that, with some of the struggles that I deal with now at almost
Yeah.
50,
Yeah.
um, shame is one of those things where if you don't get a handle on it, it can really drive your life.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I mean, I'm glad that it's coming out now. Like you say, these stigmas, a lot of these stigmas, and I'm grateful that you said it how you said it. The stigmas get really nuanced and you can zoom in and they're all very, very different and the reactions to them. But at the end of the day, shame is one of those things that can really drive your life.
Right.
And the idea that it's out there now that it's okay to not be okay, right? And that can be that concept can be a door to opening the idea of saying, okay, why, like, I'm feeling shame right now, why am I feeling shame, is it wrong to feel shame? And then as these things will come out, um is there a time in your life where, because obviously, well, I mean, I'm a stranger in that regard, but clearly you have become an incredible communicator in everything that you do. I mean, I see some of the videos that you're doing with your daughter. I'm seeing, there's one in particular that I saw of you. And it was a few years ago. You'd lost a job, and it was your
Yeah.
reaction to losing a job. It was the exact opposite of shame. You were open about it. You said, "Okay, this sucks. I've lost the job. We've got the mortgage." By this point, you're stateside, and you've got the mortgage. You've got all this stuff going on. This kind of sucks. By the way, I've got a couple books that would help a lot. But you didn't dwell on that. You weren't pushing or selling people to do that. You were like, listen, I need to regroup. I know it's going to be okay. Like, you were the opposite of shame. You embraced it. And I'm curious if there was a certain time in your life where you went from that kid that's filled with this embarrassment and shame to this man who, when adversity hits, I'm not going to be ashamed about it. And I'm going to, and then you finish the video by going, and by the way, if you're going through something, come and talk to me. I'm here for you. And I'd be happy to talk to you when you're sitting there down
Well,
and out. And so I was very, very impressed by that. And so I love the idea of clearly there's an evolution here. I would like to kind of look at that a little bit,
yeah.
if there are clues in that.
Um, it's an interesting question. What's interesting, what I'll start by saying though, is that social media videos and everything else are sometimes a mirage, right? Like,
Sure.
so I did that video, I embraced it, and I spoke from the heart, which is what I've always done. But we talked earlier about like that one tiny trigger, right? The most trivial thing, like in my bio, I think I told you, like, you know, I went through a mass shooting here in America, right? You and I both have this kind of unbelievable
Well, I'm
stories.
getting to
Like,
that. You were at the July 4th
yeah, we'll get into
shooting in
that.
Chicago. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was, but I did that, and then you and I, like, my daughter was in ICU, your granddaughter was in ICU.
Yep.
Those things, I was kind of just so focused on the, like, it almost didn't affect me, but it did affect me, but it wasn't like losing my job and going back on the shame element.
Mhm.
That video, I was genuinely trying to put positive energy, put a spin out for other people as well. But I went, last year was my darkest point when I was going through my element of depression, because I'd lost my job for like the fourth time. And
Mhm.
right, and like, I'm the we live in a house, my wife and I both work, but like, I'm suddenly not contributing towards it at all. And I remember with my youngest, when she was a baby, like last year, I was in the, like, she was crying through the night. I went in there and I'm rocking her to sleep and I'm bawling my eyes out,
Mhm.
going like, this is the lowest I've ever felt because of the job situation. So I think that people mirror, like, try and reflect by doing videos or doing social media, like, with, and it's important in men's health that, like, sometimes the picture doesn't paint the whole story, right? And the video doesn't paint it.
I don't think you were coming across inauthentic. I think
Yeah,
the vision I got from it was exactly what you're saying, James. It was literally like, here's somebody that is trying to put the most positive spin on a hard
right,
situation that they can. Like you're being, to me, that's being proactive as opposed to burying it, as opposed
right,
to just sitting there in the shame and not doing something about it. To me, that was proactive. Somebody sees that video, even years later,
Eh,
and I mean, I'm going through stuff right now. Like I watched that video and I felt encouraged.
yeah,
I really, really did. And so to me, that is being, if you can be proactive in a situation where, sometimes society or even our wiring allows us or encourages us to be reactive and to get smaller. It looked like you went the other way with that. Like, okay,
yeah,
well, I can't do anything else right now, so I'm just going to talk a little bit about it. And when we all know that when we talk about it, we start to get it out a little bit. You never know who's going
yeah,
to see it, who's going to be, so to me it was a proactive thing. But you're right, like the social media shininess that everybody has,
yeah,
where everybody thinks, so I get that all the time, right? Because I use my Facebook as an example, as a highlight reel. I use it as a
yeah,
scrapbook.
right, exactly, yeah,
Well, I usually don't put crap in the scrapbook,
yeah,
so people think this one thing about me, but it's like, no, 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 no. I'm going through stuff too. I understand. And let's talk about it a little bit, because iron sharpens iron, and maybe we can,
yeah.
glean clues from that.
Yeah, and then going back on your question, so you asked me like
Yeah.
was there a moment that I went from like this kind of awkward kid shame like period to like this confident person that can do a video?
Yes.
There wasn't a moment like that I distinguished, like there wasn't a moment or transition, but there became a point in my life, probably actually when I first moved to America,
Yeah.
where I was like, I am who I am, right? I'm, like the British are great at mocking themselves, right? Like, you
Yeah.
know, like I'm not the skinniest lad anymore, right? Like, I look a little bit more like Boris Johnson than I do like Matt Damon these days, right? Like, like I am a little bit goofy. I am a little bit awkward, right? I sometimes say inappropriate things. I like, but
You're
I'm
describing most men, just so you know.
right, right. But like, I'm also at the point where I'm like, all right, I don't care. Like I am who I am,
Yeah.
and I'm actually happy on who I am, and I actually
Yeah.
embrace that. And so I don't know whether there was a set moment, but it was just a realization in life that like I don't need to try and impress other people. There was just a light bulb moment on on that, and then
Well, they're connected. I mean, if you learn to accept yourself, guess
yeah,
what? Shame, and I'm not saying it's going to go away completely, but if you learn to accept yourself and where you're at and what's going on, it's hard for shame to have a hold
yeah,
in that if that's how you feel about yourself. So that
yeah.
makes a lot of sense.
And I also like so we were talking about my dad and my mum and my dad, and like there was just a few moments where I kind of look back on history and like the history is the history, right?
Hmm.
Like I can't go back and like change my awkwardness as a kid. Like
Sure.
that's who I like was. And my dad always used to say that humans float, right? That was his one saying, which meant that like it's actually harder to drown than it is to float because by default the human body floats up.
Hmm.
And that plus when like when I was a teenager and I was going through everything with my mom and my dad, you don't you're a teenager, you don't realize all of what's going on.
Yep.
My mom is now my best friend, but when I had a conversation with her and like she spoke about like her moments of real depression and the real like she just did everything for her kids and so long answer is I think that like when I moved to America became a husband to a wife and then became a dad, I just realized there's a lot more than worrying. There's a and I think my whole family has always wanted to help others. To me, you can't help everyone, but if you can help one person,
Yeah.
that's that's just the way you should be. I actually posted on that on LinkedIn this week on like I would always rather be that kind person, that
Yep.
supportive person than the someone that would stamp on someone else's head. Like it's just I think in my DNA. I'm not a scientist, but like I
No,
think that
but okay, you've touched on a couple things that, I mean, and it's not a popular thing to say these days. But I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the idea of saying, no, 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 yeah, you know what? Men are wired a certain way.
yeah,
And I'm not saying every man, I'm not saying that there aren't exceptions to the rule. I'm not saying, but I'm saying when I talk to people, there's a commonality there, and it's sad because some guys don't even like to say this anymore because of what's going on in society, and it's almost like they're trying to merge men and women as the same thing when really we are very different machines. We're very different biological machines, but one of the commonalities is you've gone over a couple of them, the need that's in us to provide,
Yeah.
that we want to provide. It's something that's there. I joke with Candace all the time, who's one of the founders along with Joel and Randy, if he changed it, if the byproduct of a tech company even being moderately successful is a lot of money. Okay, that's the byproduct. And so Candy would say things like, "Oh, I'm going to retire you," and all that sort of stuff, right? And don't get me wrong, there are like moments where I'm like, "Oh yeah, it'd be nice to have, a month of being retired and very comfortable that way where I didn't have to do that." But I'll tell you, I've met many dudes who have FU money who now have lost purpose because the providing is sort of done, but they're not doing it on a day-to-day thing. And they have to figure something out that will give them something that scratches that same itch. The other side of that coin is you have just perfectly encapsulated what he changed it is. Men have this stigma that we don't get vulnerable. Okay, but many men, I'm not going to say all men, of course there's exceptions. Again, disclaim in this day and age. Oh my God. But there are so many men that are wired to want to help immediately. Like I use this example all the time. A guy who's a professional painter is walking down the street and he sees a guy painting a fence.
Yeah.
And the guy is ass backwards doing it. He's not doing it right. That guy many times will walk over and say, "Hey, if you did this and this and this, it would take half the time and half the paint."
Right.
Oh, okay. Like we naturally want to help. The act of helping is vulnerability. It's us showing. And so he changed it is all about leave something that you know and take something that you need. And many times, like that act alone is vulnerability. And many men are wired that way and can understand that, which is why that wraps into everything that he changed it is doing. And it feels like you're just making that case.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you touched on a few points here. I mean, I loved Friends growing up. I think everyone in the early
Everyone loved Friends.
2000s loved it, right? But there was the Phoebe and Joey, and it was like, there's no selfless acts. Like you're always doing something for a reason, and it's like, why? Well, like, why can't you? To your point, like, if if I'm walking down the street and I'm not very good at painting fences, but like, if I was walking down the street and someone was doing it badly, why wouldn't I want to help out, right? Um and we are kind of like trained like what's in it for me, like
Sure.
like there's nothing in it for me. It's just like that's a good thing to do in life. It's the right thing to do. Like as someone like someone's my daughter's daycare came up to me this morning and was like, "Hey, like you're good at sales, right?" And I was like, "Well, not really, but like like that has been my job." And he's like, "I'm starting my new business. Like, can you help me out?" And my immediate reaction was, "Okay, let me brainstorm some ideas with you. Let me see what I can do." Like, let me be honest. Like, what your business is nothing to do with what I've done in my career. But I'm more than happy to have a conversation, have a cup of coffee with you.
Yeah.
And I'm not interested in like, well, I hope I get shares in that company, and I hope I get payment in it. I'm just like, all right, if I can help him, like if I can help him in a small way, great. Like that should be the way of life.
It
It's
should
not.
be, but like, and this is where it gets even, where again, things that are naturally hardwired into us, even get demonized. Like the idea of this, what we're talking about here. Other people might spin that and going, "Oh yeah, you're just mansplaining." Like they demonize it. They like it's a bad thing. And don't get me wrong, we can all have tact. We all need to learn how to actively listen so we don't steamroll people. I'm not saying that I'm throwing any babies out with any bathwater. I'm not doing that. But what I'm saying is that many times that mansplaining, quote unquote, comes from a place of wanting to just help,
Yeah,
wanting to just explain. Now you learn, don't be abrasive, don't be, be open-minded, don't try and control. Okay, I get all that. Of course, there's nuance and there's,
yeah.
but again, that's what we're talking about here. And it's really, at the end of the day, so many men are wired to want to do that.
Right. Bring it back. Let's bring it back to mental health, right? Like,
Yeah.
I genuinely think there are, like, you talk about my books, right? I
Yeah.
genuinely think everyone is a book, right? Everyone has at least one story in them of their life, their
Yes.
ups and downs, their challenges. Everyone has it. Everyone has tough days, right? Every man and wants to help out others. Like, not actually, I'll go back. Not every woman, not every man, but a lot of people want to, when people are down, support them and help them out.
Yes.
Like, I think part of the challenge with mental health, though, is you have to embrace that health. Like, a lot of people came to me last year. A lot of people come to me a few times, and again, like, oh, like I'm so sorry. Like, like, actually, a few weeks ago, like, I had two dogs, and I love dogs more than I love most human
Mhm.
beings.
Yeah. Yeah.
I lost my first dog in January this year, and I lost
Oh,
my second dog in February this year. And like, your reaction there is like, oh man, that sucks. Like, like, your immediate reaction without knowing me was, how can I help? What can I
yeah.
do?
Yep.
And my immediate reaction is, I don't want a hug. I don't want support. I'm okay handling this on my own. And what, if one person listens to this again, like, if one person listens to this and goes, okay, you might not want help from Mike. You didn't want that sympathy, but you're suffering. You need to find your output to help you. Then
Yep.
you and I have done our job for the next step. Like,
Oh my gosh. I just one of the things I'm working on in my life right now is emotionally managing people.
yeah,
Um, when somebody in my life is upset, I want to help that. And
yeah,
just like you said, you lost both your dogs. Oh my God. Like, I think that is a universal. I think that most people would hear that and go, "Oh, that sucks." And they want to know the story, and they want to know, and the empathy is there. They want to help, right? But you can go too far in that too. You can be like, "Okay, well, I'm not like, if one of the kids is going through something, is upset, is whatever, sometimes we can take emotional management too far, where if they're not okay, we're not okay. So if I
right,
can't help them change their attitude or change their viewpoint on things, or I can't help them with that, where I don't feel like they're okay, now I'm going to be stuck in a fight or flight kind of spot. and
yeah,
and and that's something I'm working on right now personally, because empathy needs to be managed just like every other emotion that we have. And yeah, that's I love that you brought it up in that story. I'm sorry you lost your dogs. That sucks.
I always
um
did.
like that, yeah, man, that's a brutal thing. um I want to pivot to the books for a second here. Was Stars Will Guide You Home? That was your first book, right?
Yeah. So
And
do you want to know the background on that? Because I think it will help
I
you.
do, I very much, because the book, the synopsis fascinates me. I haven't read it, full disclosure in that regard, but
I'll get your address afterwards, Mike. I'll send you three
oh, I
copies.
appreciate it, man. Yeah,
I,
yeah, yeah,
I,
yeah. I'd love to, because the synopsis fascinated me like crazy, and some of this from grandfather
yeah.
inspired some of this stuff.
So
Yeah, okay.
this is where it's interesting, right? So Stars is actually a really interesting project. All four of my grandparents were in the Second World War. Like, and not only were they in the Second World War, I mean, they were really in the middle of it. Like,
Yep.
my granddad on my mum's side was dropped behind the enemy lines in Burma. Like, the bridge over River Kwai was his regiment. Like, I mean, that's
Oh,
crazy. My granddad on my dad's side was in the British Navy on the Atlantic Fleet trying to hunt down the U-boats. My grandma on my mum's side was 17 and moved from like a rural countryside Wales to go to like one of the busiest hospitals in London, and then got evacuated with the kids. And my other grandma on my dad's side was in the Second World War in London. She was working at what was in a furniture factory, and they changed it into making aeroplanes.
yep.
And then she was a warden on the street. So when the sirens went off, she was one of the people that was walking around making sure people got underground. So that was a real, like, I'm really proud of all of them for what they did. What was interesting as a teenager was two of my grandparents would, when you have classes and stuff like that, they would tell me everything. They would tell me
Yeah.
like almost too much details for a 14-year-old. Like, like,
Yeah.
hey, I was behind enemy lines. Like, yeah, I blew up a bridge. I killed some enemies. Like,
Yep.
whoa. Like, two of my grandparents didn't say a word about it at all. Didn't want me to know about it. And again, I think that mental health, that stigma of like they didn't want the medals, they didn't want the anything like
Yeah.
that came across. Anyway, so long story short, so when I moved to America, I didn't have any friends. I'd moved to a brand new place. I was on my own, and I'd always liked writing. And I only had one grandparent left, and so I started calling her. And she just got diagnosed with dementia at the time, so I started
Wow.
calling her and asking her about her experiences in the war, and started writing down. And then I was like, I remember granddad, he was in Japan, like in Burma, like, and so she would tell me all of the stories. And I started writing them down.
Yep.
And that transpired into, well, then I'm going to talk to my dad about his parents. And then I'm actually going to do some research. And I just started writing this down, and I wrote stars where I then went into the fiction world. And I was like, okay, I want to tell the story of World War II from 4 different angles.
Yep.
And, they'd never met before the war, but of course in this book they did. Like, miraculously in my book, one of them happens to be at Pearl Harbor the day Pearl Harbor got attacked. Like, one of them met Queen Elizabeth. Like I just created this fictional world of like World War II, but it was we talked about it earlier. I was lonely, and it was my way of connecting with my family from across the world and writing down and building out my story. And so that's how I built Stars. And that, I I love the fact now that my 9-year-old is reading it. And I have to remind myself that like it's a little bit like, yeah, maybe you should read that chapter, like, like
It's like the grandparent who has no problem telling you the horrors and the atrocities.
right.
Like,
I'm now that parent, right? Yeah. Right. But
okay, hold on. I want to ask you about that. Because, like, okay, there are people out there, like, I look at my childhood, right? I mean, we all, this is a universal thing, I think, when you're Gen X, okay?
yeah,
Because Gen X, like, I'm a young grandpa, and grandfather, as she calls me, Paul. I remember Paul.
love
I'm her
that.
Pa.
Love
She's
that.
7. Oh, it's the best. It's the best. I see her 5 days a week. She's my favorite thing on the whole planet.
That's amazing.
But I know that I lean to what you're talking about. I'm the guy that will say things that other parents might look at, especially parents, like, because especially first time parents, right? Because
Yeah.
once you go through it, you've got a little bit different of a perspective of things, and I will be the guy that I have to get talked to sometimes, where it's like, hey, she's only 7. Be careful of some of these things that you're laying on her. But I remember when I was a kid, don't come home till the streetlights are on,
Right.
or like and when you look at, when it comes to safety, in some respects, in most respects, we have never lived in a time that's more safe, yet we still try and bubble wrap the kids in a way that they haven't been. So hearing you talk about this, I think there's a lot of dudes out there that are trying to figure out what that balance is, right?
I definitely haven't worked it out. Like, I am on the, okay, she's 9, she's fine. Like, like the other week, like, I think it was like,
let's get a t-shirt. She's 9, she's fine.
She's nice, right? But there is, like, with the book, there's a proudness of it. Like I hope that, like, she starts asking me questions like, hey, was your great granddad actually doing this? It's like, no, he wasn't actually in Pearl Harbor. Yes, he did actually do this. Like, because I hope that they learn the history. I hope it's not forgotten. But like, on the same side of things, like, and I don't know why, but like, I also didn't grow up in a world of like summer camps or any of that, like, that my daughter goes to right now. It's like, pick up at 8, gets home at 5, like, plays games all day. Like, God, like, summer holidays in England was like, all right, we're going to, like, from probably about 9 years old, was like, I'm out. Like, and there was 8 of us that were like, we would walk the streets, play
Yes.
football together.
Yeah.
One of the parents worked in the bakery, so she would always get us like discount sandwiches. One of
Yep.
the parents
Yep.
worked at the dry cleaners so that we could use the toilet to get like in the middle of the day. But like, so I am much more of that, like, okay, like mindset. And you know, I probably shouldn't, but I let my kids watch, I don't want to say grown-up movies, but
No, I know what you're talking
like
about. Yeah.
the other week, my 9-year-old watched Pitch Perfect, right?
Yeah.
She's an actress, she's a
Yep.
singer, and she doesn't get some of the jokes and things, and so I'm okay with her watching that, like, but
When you were a lad, did you and the boys watch R-rated movies?
yeah, right, like, I mean,
I sure did. I saw Revenge of the Nerds when I was grade 4. You know that, okay, so that's a raunchy comedy. But at
uh,
that same party where I watched that, we also watched the first Terminator.
right,
Like,
I was
I
about to
mean,
say, like, Terminator, RoboCop, I feel like everyone of our generation
yeah, RoboCop's another one. Again, yeah, like yes, exactly. And so if it was okay for me then, there's a part of me that's like, okay, well, no, she can handle this stuff, and I'd rather get it out in the open and talk about this stuff. I'd rather be the
yeah,
friend in that regard.
right.
You know, I do like the idea of deeper relationships between parents or grandparents and the kids, so where there is a friend component. I dig that a lot. And that's an area where there can be, if there is openness to things.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't want to hide that stuff from my parents,
No,
but I did.
I mean, one of the things, I mean, there's a million things that I respect about my wife. Like, I'm obviously punching above, like, like
Yeah.
happy here, but like, my wife has always had this, like, let's have open conversations with our daughter right from an early age. Like, if
Yeah.
you're upset, if you're like, and like right now, she's struggling right now. She's 9 and she's dealing with like bullies and things. And like, I'd much rather her have that conversation with us and
Mm-hmm.
try and talk things through with her, help her, than her hide things. Like going back, like, to the piece. And the other thing is, I mean, like, I actually listened to another podcast this morning. My friend started his own podcast. You talk
Nice.
about like what affects one person versus another person, right? Like my friend has loved movies for years, so he started his own podcast on movies. I clearly remember 9 or 10 years old watching RoboCop with that guy, right?
Absolutely.
It
Yep.
did not affect either of us. He talked about The Never-Ending Story this morning, and that film traumatized me for years. Like, like, and I think that goes back to the one person's one person dealing with it in one way is okay, and another person dealing with something in another way is okay. Like that, we're it's not like, you know, when it comes to mental health, it's not like, okay, you have a migraine. Okay, we know
Right.
from years of
Right.
experience of studying a migraine, this medicine works best.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mental health is like, there are so many different triggers and things that affect people, and so many different ways of coming out from it, and that's okay. Like that's
Mhm.
the more that people embrace, like, actually I'm not okay, but I need help, but I don't want the help of talking to someone on the phone. I don't want this. I The more you embrace that, the more that we accept that. Like you said earlier, we've accepted the norm of mental health now, and I kind of feel like society has accepted that mental health is a thing. It's not like
Yes.
made up story, like never
Yes.
ending story, right? It's actually real. But I think like more people embrace that it's not just one thing, it's a whole scenario here. That's the key to me.
Well, for me, like, I mean, I look at it the same way that I would look at, you know, I have a financial business, and I look at other advisors, and I say to them, okay, hey, what do you do? What are you doing right now with the markets doing what they're doing? What do you do? Or you know, what are some of the things? And we bounce things off of each other all the time. And I think men are very good at that. They're very good at
Yeah.
being, inquisitive about that, and we'll refer people to each other when we see an opportunity to do that, not because of any gain, like you said earlier, but so at the end of the day, you've got some width and breadth of experience here. What are some of the things for James? What are some of those things that when you feel like you've got
Yeah.
12 holes in the dam but only 10 fingers and
Yeah,
stuff's going
right.
on, and what are some of the things that you have found effective
Yep.
to deal with these things?
Yeah. So we kind of touched on two of them already, right? So for me
Mhm.
personally, writing is my escape to the world. So we said
Yep.
about the first book. My second book was I'd done 20 years of tech sales, and
Yep.
I'd seen so much BS and so many
This is
learning.
keep calm and carry on learning.
Yeah,
This
this is
this
keep
is that
calm
one.
and
Yep.
carry on
Yep.
learning. So
Yep.
I just I wanted to write down. I didn't want to write a business book. I wanted to write down short stories, but with learnings in them.
That's
And
fantastic.
I genuinely think it's my 4 followers or whatever it is, but I
Yeah.
genuinely think that like if you read Keep Calm, anyone can learn from it. A shopkeeper or a financial advisor.
Yep.
There's something that it's not rocket science. It's something that's like, hey, like, oh yeah, I should think about tone and body language. Should think about perception.
Right.
And then I just did And the Animals, which was my third book, which was my favorite one I did, which was I started with my daughter's Addie. So I started with, okay, I'm going to do Addie and the Ape. And I'm going to do a little quirky kid story that rhymes about, you know, a talking animal that embracing change. And it's like,
Yep.
well, I've got 2 kids, so I've got to do Stevie and the Spider then.
The theme is
I've got-
embracing change.
yeah, Addie's
Whoa.
embracing change.
What a
And then,
beautiful, beautiful thing to try and get into
yeah,
your kids,
right,
the idea of embracing change, because life is everything is temporary. We know
right.
this, right?
Yeah.
Great.
So
Yeah.
so 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 then I did Stevie and the Spider, and Stevie and the Spider is about like scared to do something. Like, all right,
Yeah.
like okay. So then I was like, all right, these are fun, right? Like, like okay, I'll do my nieces and nephew, but like I already done S and Sky is my nephew, so I'm like, okay, I'll do his middle name, so I'll do Braden, and then it just grew and grew, and I ended up with 26 short stories, and so that was so that to me, whenever I'm feeling stressed, like last week, I was really in a stressful spot with the work situation and other things. I
Yep.
was like, I need to write for an hour a day, even if I
Yeah.
do 2 things. That's my escape, and I've also come to the conclusion, like, yeah, of course, my next one is called Chloe Stone and the Orbs of Destiny, and I decided that like I'm going to take on
Cool.
J.K. Rowling, that that tiny author,
Yep.
but and I genuinely just started I'd had this idea for years about this, like, what happens if there's an alien school on Earth? And I genuinely saw an article that annoyed me about J.K. Rowling. I loved Harry Potter, loved
Yeah.
those books. And then my brother's an openly gay man, and
Mhm.
I just don't like the ick around it, right? Like, I don't
Mhm.
like and so I was like, all right, I'm going to write Chloe Stone and the Orbs of Destiny. It's going to be an 11-year-old American that goes to an English school, and it's an alien school. And like, and I've much so you dream like, oh, I hope it gets as big as like Harry Potter. Like, I'm perfectly content with the fact that I've just taken some negative thoughts in my mind. I've dealt with it in my own way. And if 5 people buy the book, great. Like,
The process is the outcome.
yeah, exactly,
And then who
exactly.
knows what happens after that, but the
Right,
process is the important part. Yep.
exactly. So you asked about that. I have never been one to open up. In fact, this is like, if any of my friends hear this, this is probably the most open I've been with a lot of my friends when it comes to mental health. Yeah, like take a bow. Like you've done
Yeah,
it.
you would never like, I think that there are people listening to this right now that are probably gonna be flabbergasted by that.
Yeah, right. But I
Yep.
like, again, like that stigma. I hung out with them on the streets. I grew up with these people. Like some of my best friends, like my neighbors down the road. Like, I know that everyone's dealing with their own thing. Like, I don't want them to think of me in a certain way, which is crazy,
Yeah.
but I haven't mastered that. So therapy has helped though. Like
Mhm.
last year was probably the darkest I've been in a while, and
Mhm.
if not my life. And what's interesting, we talked about the kids. Depression can have and mental health can affect people in different ways.
Yep.
I was getting really angry and I wasn't realizing it. And it got to the point, I think it was even July 4th, we went away and my daughter, we were in a swimming pool and my daughter stormed off and said she didn't want to talk to me because I was so angry. And it
Oof.
like broke my heart.
Yep.
And I realized that I'm not the person I want to be. And so I sought out therapists and I sought out therapists that I see nearly every week. And I honestly do not care what her suggestions are 99% of the time. There's occasionally she does come
Yep.
up with something and say, like, but it's a way of me being able to talk openly about what I want, what I'm feeling, what I'm doing, that I never that I'd shut off in my life. So that was the second. And then my
Mhm.
third out is walking. Like I've again, I used to play sports. I'm not that sporty, but I love going into a walk for an hour
Yep.
on my own, clearing my head. I know that that doesn't work for certain people. Like I know that all three of those options, you will probably go like, dude, I'm never going to write. I hate walking. And
Yep.
the idea of talking to a stranger just doesn't appeal to me. But what I found is that those three help me. And I think it's important that people realize everyone has some kind of out, something.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think you are universal. I really do. But it gets customized for each
I'm
person,
not
right?
unique. I thought I was unique.
You are, but we are all unique. But everybody poops, and
Yeah.
so there's universal things too, right? So like physical activity, like is like you need to move your body. It
Yes.
needs to happen. I mean, okay, guys who are in a wheelchair, guys who are physically encumbered, whatever. I'm saying the vast majority of people out there, if they create some sort of physical movement, there will be a net result in other areas of their life. Cardiovascular, sure, okay, but your mental health, big time, big time. So moving your body, whatever that looks like. And I love that you walk, because walking is really, at the end of the day, I love that there's a culture of 10,000 steps out there now, because a lot of
Right.
people work in
Right.
buildings and they're doing 1,000 steps a day. Hey, get out for 45 minutes, get it up to 10,000, and see how things improve. And they do improve, including how you are equipped to deal with the pressures of this modern society. So yeah, I think that is a universal one. I think getting it out somehow is also universal. I think you get it out in a one way when you're writing, when you're using your creative spirit. Clearly you're a creative, and that creative muscle needs to be exercised. And I love that you said that you're not trying to, and don't get me wrong, I love the idea, like the idea of it being an alien school in Britain. That's really cool, because then you can really talk about some of these things that are so um that kids are going through in this modern society, where they all feel different. Well, guess what? They all are different.
Yeah.
They're
Right.
all different,
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
you know? And so I love that. But that's the net, that's a great message. But really, at the end of the day, you just writing and getting it out of you and using some of your creativity, that's the thing. That's the thing that helps you. And then who knows what happens after that. So I love that you have identified that.
Right.
And anybody who's listening to this, if you haven't identified what it is that helps you release the pressure valve, um,
I like that
find
term.
out what it is. Find out what it is for you. That's
Yeah.
what it is for James. I've got, for me, podcasting is a huge thing.
Yeah.
Like I've chased dreams, ridiculous dreams, and it's led to some pretty cool experiences, when really at the end of the day, the outcome was just chasing the dream, right? And when I
Yeah.
podcast like this, like I'm going to go see a client in an hour. I'm going to drive out there and see them. Senior client, seniors, they're wanting to make sure their retirement stuff's okay, and that they're the people that they want to get their money when they go get it, and they're efficient and all of that stuff. I'm going to be charged up when I go into that meeting. I'm going to have so much optimism and positive because of this conversation, because of doing that. That's what it is for me. For me, I know if I'm in a bad place, I do a podcast. I want to go to the spot though where you suddenly were given that gift of awareness that you did not like the person you were. And I mean, that is to me so sobering. If Alara, my granddaughter, ever came up to me and said something like that, it would be the coldest of cold showers ever. It would be okay. I'm listening now. And that awareness that you were given, and it was a gift because now you can recalibrate. And so many times awareness is that silver bullet, right? That is a thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I mean, and it, no human being is perfect, right? And so like the other day, like 2 points on this, I lost my temper the other day with my daughter. Like now, arguably, she's 9 years old and did not listen to me. And I feel like every parent in the world and grandparent in the world has gone through this of like, I've told you this 5 times, now I'm raising my voice conversation. But there was, so just because I found that pressure valve, as you called it, like doesn't mean it works 100% of the time. And that's okay. Like it's okay to make mistakes on this journey of embracing who you are. The other thing that you kind of touched on is hobbies, right? And interest and like, to me, those three, and I live just north of Chicago, so I'm near neighbors to you guys, right? But you guys are like up right by the Arctic Circle, having equal. I'm a member of Canada, right? Like, but
other side of a big lake, and that's where we are. Yep.
Yeah, right. But like when it's icy and snowy, there's every reason not to go out and go for a walk, right? I do it myself. I find that if I'm having a bad period and I don't do any one of the three, ideally I tick off all three, knowing that like one, maybe all of them will be that relief for me.
Mm-hmm.
But if I don't do all three, like if I don't, like a few weeks ago, it's snowing, I don't go for a walk. Okay. Mm-hmm. I was busy working, didn't write. Okay. And my therapist canceled on me.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have all three of them. That I know lead, like, luckily my mental, I was okay. Mm-hmm. But if I was having a bad period and I didn't do all three or any of those three, that leads me into an even worse place. And so like
downward spiral. Absolutely.
Yeah, right. And like, hobby could be any hobby, right? Like, I think one of my favorite job interviews I ever did with someone was I interviewed them. I was like, so well, tell me about yourself at college. And like, they were like, I was part of the Quidditch team. And I wanted to hire him there and then. I was just like, that's amazing. But like the fact that he was embracing the fact that he was in a Quidditch team, right? The fact that people have hobbies, and like knitting has become cool again, right? Like, like my grandma used to knit, and now like there's these 20-year-olds knitting. And I'm like, that's amazing. Like, whatever it is, like, don't use the excuse. Go down the route of like actually doing the hobby and interest. That's what that would be my take from this.
Clearly we have established a theme, and it's about proactivity, being proactive and embracing some of these things that we have. And again, so many times we put so many carts before so many horses. Oh, I'm not going to learn that instrument because I'll never play in the United Center for 20,000 people. Well, no. It's not, that's not it.
Yeah.
Go just learn how to play, get Wonderwall under your belt, and see how you feel when you get those 5 chords or 4 chords, whatever it is, and you sing it. And that part of you that's always wanted to be a singer, be a whatever it is, that part of you just lights up. It lights up like a Christmas tree, and suddenly, with no outcome. So go, yeah.
So it's very funny you bring up music, because I do think music in general is an interesting topic. So I don't know whether you know this, but Joel and I met. I was running my own business. I asked for Joel for some work. we bonded over Pearl Jam. Like, my wife is obsessed.
Mhm,
I love Pearl Jam now. We
mhm.
bonded over Pearl Jam. In fact, Joel wrote me a very clever email that had like 10, like, it isn't all black, and like, we are still alive, and like,
Yeah,
and music is just like, music is a very interesting topic when it comes to depression, because and mental health, because I genuinely think most people, not everyone, love some form of music.
yeah,
And I think that music is a great like, when I walk, I often will have music on. But
mhm.
sometimes I will have 90s trance music on.
Yeah,
Sometimes I will have classical music on. Sometimes I will have Pearl Jam on, right? And I think that almost like, what's to find your jam, right? Like, like,
yeah,
everyone has different music. Everyone should embrace the fact that everyone likes other music, and everyone should realize that whatever your your music is, if it helps you, listen to it and
yeah.
enjoy it. And you know, don't overthink it. Don't think like, oh my god, I'm listening to Pearl Jam, so like 10 people are gonna like judge me right now. Like,
Oh god, yeah. Like I go back to like that was one of the silver bullets that got me through my youth. Like I lost my father last year,
I'm
and it
so
was it
sorry
was
to
it
hear
was
that.
traumatizing, and it was
It's,
these things. But my dad was an angry guy growing up, and
yeah,
um he never beat us or anything like that, but there was always the shadow of dad's anger,
yeah,
I could tell the way he drove into the driveway what was coming into the door. And it was just it was always kind of on edge. And
yeah,
so you're going through your teenage stuff, and a lot of that stuff, I didn't open up to my dad about anything because I was just more afraid of things. Many
yeah,
times I wanted everything to be copacetic. I wanted everything to be okay, right? That's probably where I got this trying to emotionally manage people. But I was in grade 8, and I remember I went through, teenage romance, right? Where you go on 2 dates with a girl or something like that, or
married,
you
practically
watch a
married at
movie.
that point. Yeah, it's
Well, there you go. See, and that's just it. And then suddenly it's like, no, it's not going that way, and it ends. So I mean, I'm sitting there listening to "Nothing Compares to You" by Sinead O'Connor on loop that
yeah,
summer, and then
yeah,
the Bryan Adams song came out, the Robin
let
Hood Bryan Adams song came out, and
everything
oh
you
my god,
do.
on loop. And I mean, the teenagers who do that are right. Take
Yeah,
the music and get emotionally, allow it to allow these emotions to come out. And when music is a huge thing, whether you're listening or playing,
yeah,
that's a huge
100%.
release for people,
Yeah,
you know. And we don't take the time to do it sometimes. And I love that. Yes, it's great to listen to podcasts and books on tape, or audiobooks. Now books on tape. I just showed how old I am. It's great to listen to that when you're going for a walk, you're exercising or whatnot. But sometimes I need some Nine Inch Nails, man, or sometimes I need some Radiohead, or sometimes
yeah,
I need some, like you said, I'm a huge KLF fan, like 90s trance. Sometimes that's just what I need, is that driving beat, and it changes everything else that I'm going through. And that's a
100%.
great release. So I get, you and I are very similar in that. And Joel and I have also certainly connected over music as well. So that's one
Yeah.
of the reasons why he and I like each other so much too.
And
But yeah, it's a huge thing.
I love that. I love that. And don't be embarrassed about it, right? Like, like,
Oh,
like, well, I started an hour ago talking about, like, I lost my friend at 18. Like,
yeah,
I can't remember the name of the song now, but there was a Bon Jovi song that I listened to for probably 6 days straight. Like,
yeah,
like, and
yeah,
that's okay. Like, it doesn't matter what other people think. That's your release. That's your way. I will, like, just sorry, like, I lost my dad as a few years ago. When you lose a
mm,
parent, it's a very significant loss that you don't realize until you go through it. And
yeah,
again, like, for some people listening to this, losing a loved one can be a trigger that affects everything else. And that and I can't hug you. I don't know what your releases are, but all I think that there should be more sympathy and empathy in the world of like, look, I'm sorry. Like, I'm
yeah.
sorry that you had to go through that. It's tough.
Well, when you do go through stuff like that, my encouragement to people, one thing that I learned is get reflective,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, there's no sense in regret. There's no sense in trying to change things that are impossible to change, but you can reflect and you can improve moving forward,
Yep.
and you can figure out the things that you learned that you didn't learn. It's like your daughter saying to you, suddenly waking you up and making you aware of something. When you get reflective, when things like that happen, I find that there's a lot of gold that can be mined in that reflection, and
Yeah.
and that gold will usually lead to improvement moving forward if you choose to go in that direction. But again, that's the proactive touch, right? So I
Yeah.
appreciate you saying that, and the same thing for you. I mean, what I learned, one of the things that I learned going through that is we all have people in our lives who talk about the parent that they lost 15, 20 years ago, and they talk about it like it happened yesterday. Suddenly I completely related to those people in a way that I never related before. And it's something that it's the way it's supposed to be. Our parents are supposed to go before we do. That's the way
Yeah.
it's supposed to be, for sure. Unfortunately, sadly, tragically, that isn't always the case, but that's the way it's supposed to be. Every generation has gone through it. Heroes, cowards,
But
good people, villains, they go through it when they lose the parent, right? It's something that is universal. And that's an area where, like you say, it can trigger things, and it's good to connect so we
the
can go through that stuff better together.
the interesting thing, and we're kind of talking about death, and I don't want it to
Yep.
sound morbid, but like my favorite quote ever, and if I wasn't scared of needles, I would actually have this tattoo, is "Dream as if you live forever, live as if you die today" by James
There
D.
you go.
Like,
That's a
and
fantastic quote.
and it is a fantastic quote, and it is a quote that has stood the test of time for thousands of years. Right, humans have been on this planet for 5,000 years, if not longer.
Hmm.
Death happens. Like,
Yeah.
it should happen in the circle of life, that like you lose your parent, you lose your grandparent, you lose your parents, you have your kids, and so on. But it doesn't. And like, we have, again, my best friend dying at 18. He was an only child, and his parents, like that was just horrible for them.
Yeah.
But I'm not actually scared of death. I'm not actually,
Me
and death
neither.
doesn't depress me. Like,
Nope.
but
Me
I
neither.
understand that it does depress many others. But
Absolutely.
whenever I talk to someone else about it, or someone that's lost a parent, or someone that's lost a loved one, I always go back to you know, let's reflect on their life and what you learn, more than let's reflect on the fact of death is happened, because death does happen, right? I could go pick up my daughter today and, you know, like not have a
Yep.
good day.
Everything is not guaranteed. Nothing is guaranteed. Nothing
But
is guaranteed. Yep.
Jews in the universe, but like the,
Yeah, no. We're not
the
manifesting that. That's an example, though. It's true. I'm not afraid of it either, and I know how it evolved for me. And many times it does evolve out of experience, right? That idea, because I used to get depressed thinking about death. I used to look at seniors when I was in my 20s and 30s, and how they would always be talking about death. They'd be talking about looking at the obituaries, and they'd be talking about all these things, and I couldn't connect to it.
yeah,
Now I feel like I am connected to it. It's one of those things that I'm very comfortable with it right now,
yeah.
extremely comfortable. But it took an evolution to get to that place.
But there's two other things I'll touch on. Like, so
Yeah.
the first is your point on, like, some people talk about it like 10, 15 years later, right? Like, that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, uh, there there was a moment last year. Like, I lost my dad in 2019. Like,
Okay.
completely randomly, like almost like I lost him to COVID before COVID was cool.
Oh, okay.
Right. Like,
Yeah.
it was like lost him to like something very similar.
Yep.
But so I talked to someone last year, and they were like, "Yeah, but that was like 5, 6 years ago. Like, aren't you?" Like, and it's like, well,
Uh,
no, like that's like everyone like loses people, and they can have those thoughts. Like, I lost my best friend at 18. That was 25 years ago, right? Like,
hmm
that's okay. Like, it takes however much time it does. And then the other thing is if you start overthinking things, and I don't want to,
Yeah.
I never talk about religion or politics too much. I mean,
Sure.
politics in the world right now is like very scary. Like,
It's
but
bonkers, man.
yeah, right. Like that's the polite way of saying it. Like, um, but my grandma is 101.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
Yeah, right. Like, now she's actually not living a great life. Like, she doesn't
Yeah.
remember much anymore, but she's 101. And then you like you talk to people and they lost their parents, and they're like their parents were in their 30s or their 40s, or like tragically you lose kids, right? And it's like, well, the world isn't fair, and like God picked this. And it's like, first of all, remove religion, like it happens, and second of all, you can't control that. You can
That's right.
only control your connection and your relationship and how you move it.
Yeah.
Once you have that realization, I think it changes your way of coping with tragedy like death.
Yeah. Well, and death is one, but also like the trials of life, like that advice or that pondering
Thanks.
can apply to the big things, but also it can apply to the little things too. I think that's I hate to say that we're gonna call it, but we're gonna call it because the powers that be, one being my wife, say that they want the podcast at a certain length. I'm the guy that loves the long form, and they've with a whip and a chair, they have tempered me. There is so much that we could have talked about more. I knew that this was going to be the case. I said at the beginning, like you and I know
Yeah.
if we wanted to do a series, would you please come back at some point and we can talk
Yeah,
about some of the other
you
things?
know, like I said, I think what you're doing is phenomenal to the world.
Appreciate it.
If one person listens to this podcast and goes, "Oh yeah, I can relate to that fella that like looks like Boris Johnson," like, or I, I can deal. I've had to deal with these things. I've had to deal with job like I. That's that's what the universe is all about. I would love to come back at any point you want me.
Oh, I appreciate it. For people who want to connect with you, what are your socials? Do you have any like? Is there
Uh,
still websites for
yeah,
the books and things
yeah.
like that? Or
So all three books are on Amazon. You can go
yeah,
on Amazon
yeah,
and buy all three. I'm on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/James McGuinness. You can find me
yep.
there.
Okay,
I'm Brit in the USA on LinkedIn. On
nice.
Instagram, I think I can't remember it.
Yeah.
James Brit in the USA. Joel has my Instagram.
Oh yeah, we'll put them up too. So yeah, that's
If
that's
they want
that's
to connect
cool.
with me, feel free. And we started by saying this, like, I believe in karma in the world. Like, the offer is there to like, if anyone listens to this and resonates in any shape or form and just goes, hey, I actually want to talk to a stranger. I don't want to talk to a friend. I want to talk to a crazy British guy. Like, um, hit me up, reach out. I'm not 100% good on, like, great on social media, but hit me up. This is what
Yeah.
the world's all about, man.
I appreciate it so much, and you are a light in this world, man. And thank you for being that, despite the times of darkness. Still striving for that, and sharing what you've learned. It's amazing. I'm grateful that there are going to be people in your life that are going to be shocked by you doing this
Yeah,
and being
right.
open and whatnot. That's super super cool, because they're going to see another dimension of you, and it's the dimension that I saw immediately when we did our intro. So thank you so much for coming on to heCast today. This is why we do the show, everybody. This is exactly it. It's not advice in the regard. What we're trying to do is share stories and throw it out there for people so they can maybe reflect and see how they can improve their lives. This has been another episode of heCast, the official podcast of He Changed It. My name is Mike Chisholm. Go change something.